Oh, you know what would be interesting? Playboi Carti is a feature on in this music. That would be interesting. I have no idea where, but I'm just sensing a Playboi Carti.
I don't see that. He's not melodic enough. I think that this is like, all right, so there's like entertainer and musician, poet. This what she does is very much in the musician group, and I think that's like above Carti's pay grade. Respectfully,
you're a trash musician.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is another episode of Album Mode. We review a new album every single week. We look at the lyrics, the production, the overall aesthetic of the album, and how that album fits into the context of that artist's career. If you're watching this on YouTube, like this video, leave us a comment, let us know how wrong we are, and of course, make sure you're subscribed. My name is Adriel Smiley, aka AdrielSmiley.com, aka Adriel Smiley Official, aka The Godfather, and we are here with His Royal Highness, aka the Bunny, King Grant.
Welcome back, people. This time we're doing Charli XCX, Brat. I'm wearing green purposefully. And I think that this is one of those artists, for me, I've been wanting to review Charli XCX's music for a while. I remember when Crash came out, I was one of the people that liked Crash. Okay, I know it's not everybody, but I was one of those people. And I remember earlier this year, we were talking about who's our most anticipated artist, most anticipated album. And I remember I said Charli XCX, and you're like, what?
Yeah, that was a good call.
Right? So now Charli XCX is back. I think she's English. The English woman herself. She's dropped this new album, Brat. We're a week late. We are.
Yes.
Because we had super, super important things to do last week, so we could not record. But we're still here. I twisted Adriel's arm to do it.
We're not going to go that far.
I did twist his arm.
We're not going to go that far.
His arm was twisted. I did it. I did the twisting, and we're back.
You know what? I'll give you the credit. It wasn't my first choice.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to do Brat by Charli XCX because I think Charli is in this group of artists who I've just been aware of for a long time. And I think what I've realized now, because also we're doing this podcast, we've talked about a few artists in terms of being industry plants. And she is someone who got that like that label on her a few years back.
Yeah.
And again, I've been aware of her for a long time, so I was like, this is interesting. But I thought about that with her because how you think of someone's industry plant is basically is where you come into an artist. And I think of someone like Jack Harlow who gets that a lot now because people weren't aware of him before. And you know, she's been one of those artists for me that I've never gone into full-grown fandom, but she was always on the periphery,
right?
Where it's like, okay, oh, she has a good song out. Always had good songs out. Always did good features. Someone who I always like. There's going to be good quality over there, but never did I cross over into the fandom. And in the present, still haven't crossed over. But I always want to see her do well because she reminds me of an era in my life when I was listening to a different group of artists. And most of the artists I was listening to at that time are not really popping anymore.
Oh.
And to see her kind of progress past a lot of those artists is pretty cool. I'm going to go back in time and do a little bit of kind of a review of her career up to this point. Most of this is coming from Genius.com. And going through this little bio they had, I was like, man, do I know Charli like I know Charli? And I forgot about a lot of the hits that she had. And, you know, we talked about it privately about her being a hit maker and being a pop star. And I was like, I guess she is a pop star. Like, it really hadn't hit me. I feel like the auntie in your small town you grew up in who's like, this is still little Charli. And, you know, going through this bio kind of made me realize I might be in the minority in that. In 2010, she signed to Atlantic Records, released her debut single, Stay Away, in 2011, in May of 2011. And then her proper debut album was True Romance in 2013. This was like around the time when I probably was listening to Charli XCX the most.
Wow, look at you.
Sure.
Hipster.
Sure. But this was a time when, you know, Tumblr was still around. This was like the era where like there was a lot of Charli XCX.
Oh, legitimate hipster right now. Finally, Charli XCX on Tumblr.
Yeah. Naming both those things, like I was listening in 2012 and on Tumblr is like, okay, we get it.
Where's the mustache? You have the mustache tattoo? Where is your mustache tattoo?
Oh my goodness! But her true breakthrough was being on Fancy with Iggy Azalea, and then on
Huge.
I Love It with Iconopop.
Huge.
And I think about those two records specifically because those are two artists who basically are not in the zeitgeist at all in 2024.
Yeah.
And I would say like she was a feature on both of those songs basically 10 years ago.
Yeah, but she was like the reason why Fancy was as popular as it was.
Well, here's the thing. Iggy had a string of hits around that time. And I think that Fancy was the first one that really took it off. And it reminds me of kind of Bruno Mars and B.O.B. around that same time. And how B.O.B. became the pop guy, doing a song with Bruno Mars. And, we saw what happened after that. Same with Iggy Azalea. But her own solo success happened a little bit later with Boom Clap in 2014. Let's stop right there.
Yeah.
What do you feel about Boom Clap being kind of her breakout song? It was featured on the soundtrack of The Fault in Our Stars. How did you feel about that being her breakout song? And where were you in terms of knowing about her at this time?
Yeah, I think these two songs, like Fancy, what was the other one that you mentioned right after that?
I Love It.
I Love It and Boom Clap kind of misaligned her career for where it is today, because those songs were like these very traditional pop like explosions, where I think that it framed Charli XCX as this, she's a traditional pop star, big hooks, like it's very, very regular.
Yeah.
Right? Very regular in a way that I think that her late stage part of her career is not like that at all.
No.
Literally zero. So I think that when I heard Boom Clap, I was just like, this is like an average pop star.
Yep.
She happened to be from England.
Did you know about her before Boom Clap, or was that your entry?
I think, no, Fancy was my intro.
Oh, true.
Fancy was my intro. I was still listening to hip hop. I was like, Iggy Azalea, this white woman from Australia is dropping pop rap songs. What's going on here? And so I knew about Charli XCX from then.
Yeah.
And then Boom Clap came out. So I was like, she's kind of like, back then, the singer on the hook of a rap song also is a pop star, and they're doing their own thing.
She was in the Gwen Stefani role.
Yeah. Gwen Stefani, I'm trying to think of, I don't
Nelly
know.
Furtado.
Ashanti, that type of deal.
Fergie.
Yeah. So that's where it was for me. So that's why I'm saying at the beginning, it misaligned the way people viewed her, because then you go later into her career and it becomes weirder, more electronic, more even hyperpop to a degree.
Yeah, definitely.
And then now it's almost like electronic, right?
As a base.
Yeah. And so it's just, I think that's what happened to her career, is like this weird misalignment for her overall career at the beginning. And
I think why I wanted to bring those up is those are songs that I would have ignored regardless. And so me being aware of her and liking her music before then, Boom Clap, I probably wouldn't even have known that was a big song until 3 months after it's a big song. Because that's the kind of artist who, I hear that song, I'm like, that is not for me.
Yeah.
I'll move on. And I'm not even aware that this is people's entry into her as an artist. So going back and kind of seeing that, it made me realize how she's viewed. And I think on this project specifically, she talks about how she's viewed being a pop star, how that affects her. And I think that is the biggest thing about Charli XCX that I always think of, is the juxtaposition of artistically, I don't think she's in the center of what pop is.
No.
Like in 2018, she went on tour with Taylor Swift, the Reputation tour. Thinking about that is like almost insane. Yeah.
Yeah. Reputation. That's remember when Taylor Swift was trying to be edgy?
Yeah. Edgy Taylor. Yeah. I remember.
With Reputation. So it made sense in the moment. I think it made sense.
In the moment for sure. But I think like the part of that makes a lot of sense to where we got to now is she still has fans from that time.
Yeah. And
so they are introduced to her from this like pop Charli, when I think the Charli on Brat feels to me like that's what Charli's home. And talking about the start of production is her voice modulation, because there are a ton of different voices all over this project. Yeah. Sympathy is a Knife is where I think is a good place to start. How do you feel about the voice modulation on that? Because that's something that, second or third time listening to the project, it really stood out to me that you could really think these are all different people on all these songs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I like that or don't like that, but I do think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think that her voice, the changes for her voice are really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like it a lot. I think that the distortion, I'm big on distortion, believe it or not.
Clearly.
Hello.
2093.
Wake it up, people.
Right now, he's listening to 2093. He's not even listening to Brat.
Yeah.
2093 is just playing
In the background.
while we do the podcast.
Same color scheme, by the way.
Yes.
That green, that toxic green, black, and white.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for Charli XCX, it works super well. I honestly think the more words in each song for Charli XCX, the worse. Okay, she's almost in.
Wow.
She's kind of in like the Playboi Carti zone where it's like minimize words, increase vibes. Whether or not it's vocal distortion, her her singing is just singing just weird keys, weird everything, weird it up. And I think that it works a lot. So when it comes to Sympathy is a Knife, especially when it gets to the end,
yep,
that's what I'm talking about. I'm like, you can what is she even saying?
It's a vibe though.
Exactly.
And why I said I'm not sure if I like or dislike it is as a whole. I think in each song it works. And Sympathy is a Knife is why I brought that up first.
Yeah.
Is it works on this song. Like, if you gave me this song, I'm not guessing Charli XCX is the first person who the song is by. I think that's pretty clear here. We've heard her actually sing, where it's like, I'm not hearing the song and be like, oh, I know exactly who this is.
Yeah.
But I also like that this song is the way it is, that it's not a traditional Charli XCX song in a way. So I think that that's a big part of why this album feels the way it feels. Talk Talk.
Yeah, that's another good one.
That is probably one of my least favorite on here.
Here's the thing with Talk Talk.
Okay, let's hear you defend Talk Talk.
No, I'm not defending Talk Talk. Well, I am to a degree, but I think that it's framing for me as you hear all the other songs, like even like a song like Von Dutch, which is literally right after.
Yeah,
it's so the electronic stylings of it, and these like really like almost again like the laser guns are. That is like actually a super standard pop song, Talk Talk. It's actually just like the flattest standard pop song I've heard in a very long time. And it almost makes it weirder because of how nebulous everything around it sounds. It's just like the eye of the storm.
It could have been out of here. It could have been. Yeah, it could have been out of here. I think when someone says they don't like pop music, Talk Talk is what they're talking about. That's the exact type of song that person who maybe is a metalhead or a hip hop head, and they talk shit about pop the way Mos Def talked about Drake.
Yeah,
Talk Talk is what comes to their mind when they're thinking about that. And I found it interesting because it's produced by Hudson Mohawk, who was one of my favorite producers in that like Tumblr 2011, 2012 era. Like, we talked about SoundCloud before we started it. Like, the amount of Hudson Mohawk I had saved on SoundCloud, like, different time. You don't know who that Adriel was. No, he had a chin strap, whole different guy.
Whoa.
But him producing this song, I understand why he is tapped, because he has a kind of fuller production style that, I guess fits what she does.
Yeah.
But Talk Talk to me is something that didn't have to be on here.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those that it's like you're doing so much more interesting things that you don't need to do this.
Yeah, and I would say I might say something stupid. I would say similar, where this is what I'm talking about, where it's like too many words. Too many words. And I'm not trying to be like, yo, your songwriting is trash. I don't think that's true. I just think it's too many words, not enough, trying to make me dance. I feel like the music is extremely danceable, even though it's kind of off kilter. I think that everything is so danceable. Your body wants to move and all this type of stuff. It's just trying to give me a ballad with an auto-tune voice. Like, it's not working.
I didn't hate the attempt.
I didn't hate the attempt too. I hated the execution.
It's funny, you know what it reminded me of? Because we're going to review this album later. It reminded me of a Don Toliver, because he's the king of like the auto-tune ballad.
Yeah. He has a crazy voice though. His voice is so iconic. Like when you talk about voice color, Don Toliver is like a different kaleidoscope of colors.
In the top percentile.
Yeah.
But I think that she has something there in terms of the auto-tune ballad, but just production-wise, this one didn't fit.
Yeah.
I think this one was actual like ballad production. Like, no, get weird with it. You can still auto-tune sing over this, but
True.
get weird with the production. I think there's something there. So that one I didn't totally hate. I want to talk about Von Dutch for a second.
Okay, you're hitting all the songs I want to hit.
Well, 100%, because this album did have singles. We're not singles people, you know.
Yeah.
We want the album to come out. We need this body of work. But I thought Von Dutch was one of the better choices for a single I've heard almost all year from any artist. And it's one of my favorite songs on here.
Me too.
Tell me what you think about Von Dutch.
I think Von Dutch is. I like the industrial intro that it has, and then it has like a drop midway through, but it's not like a true EDM drop. I think it's just like adding small extra elements to signify it being a drop. But I love that, like the way the synth is kind of like pulled and like running. I love the industrial aspects, like that really like whining sound in the background. I think it's awesome, man. And it's one of my favorite songs on the entire project. And it's a single, which is kind of rare for us.
And I think that this is her doing a great job of choosing that single, because a lot of times they used to say you don't want your single to be the best song on the project. I think that has totally flipped. I think in 2024, you want it to be the best song on the project, because sometimes it's the only song people are going to hear. But Von Dutch is the type of song that makes you want to do drugs. Like, whatever drugs people are doing when they hear music like this and it gets them excited, like, Von Dutch fits that mold completely.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of give her credit, because, you know, honestly, Nevermind is celebrating an anniversary a couple weeks ago. And people, I think, really confused what Drake was doing with something like Von Dutch. And as much as we like that album, I think something like Von Dutch is a whole different level that I think the center of pop is not ready for. And there are artists like, you know, even Rina Sawayama, Rosalia, who take that industrial sound and like really like, you know, strangle it and use it very well. So I wanted to give her credit for that, because I think that's something that the center of pop has not been all the way ready for. And every time we see it and hear it on the album, it's a standout for us.
Yeah, that's a great track. I think the song right after it, Everything is Romantic, is probably one of my favorite songs, because it's almost like these like big swelling strings and then basically a grime beat afterwards. You know, it's a grime beat drop, which I didn't think that was
not on your bingo card.
Not in the repertoire. I was like, what is going on here? But then when I was listening to it, I'm like, it would have been sick if there was like Stormzy on this or some shit.
Yeah, I had it in my notes literally, like, how do you feel about that breakdown?
Because I thought it was cool.
That breakdown is something else. And the thing is, this is probably the boldest breakdown in the whole album.
Yeah, because it switches genres completely.
Like, again, this is one of those switches where it's like, this could be two different artists. And there's basically no features on here, right? No features on here.
No.
This is one of the few songs that I agree with you. A Stormzy, an AJ Tracy, just someone with that voice. A Skepta actually would be really good on this.
Facts.
But I think that there's something that, like, this is probably the album you'd want a remix album of.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
So yeah, that song is missing a feature. It's still really good though, because again, that's one of the songs that has the laser guns. Literally, it's like
yes.
So I think that song is really good. I think I could just go down the list, listing every single song, or I want to say 90% of the songs where I'm like, oh yeah, this has a great part. This has a great part. Like even a song like Mean Girls. Right.
Yo, we're honestly like two in sync. Maybe it's the time apart, like somehow. But
I know a week away, we can synchronize in the week.
That's literally the song I was gonna bring up next. Okay, tell us about Mean Girls.
Yeah, Mean Girls is basically it's a song basically about being a mean girl and being proud of it, and the fact that she is really just leaning into that when it comes to it lyrics is cool. But then this is one of those songs, I think it's like 40 seconds in, 45 to 50, something like that, 40 to 45, is like an EDM drop, like legitimately though. But I feel like every neuron in your brain is firing at the same time.
Trying to at least.
It's like every single weapon in the repertoire, break it out. We want synth stabs. We want the piano, like keyboard arpeggios. We want everything, you know. And even she's carrying, like pulling the vocals, like the letters on her vocals and stuff like that is craziness. So I think it's cool. And then on the back end, where they basically rely on the piano instead of making it more, it's more like dance, where the beginning is more of like
EDM.
EDM, right? So I think that progression is even cool, man. There's a lot of good stuff happening.
It does sound a little bit like Sexy Chick by David Guetta and Akon from how many years back.
Wow.
But it's still a great song. Still a great song. I only have one set of lyrics. So do you have anything else for production before we move on to lyrics?
I think that, I'm trying to think. 365 to 360 is cool. Like, it's basically a 360 remix.
Yeah.
Where they're basically using almost the exact same production, like the dun dun dun.
It's basically the same.
Yeah, but also taking that resampling Charli's voice for vocal lines and like So Julia and stuff like that, and folding it back onto 365. I thought was a cool effect because it also sets it up to like circle 365, like 360
to loop the album. Yeah.
360 is full turn, 365 is a full year, right? So that full turn revolution is cool to have at the beginning and the end. So I thought that was even just a good production, a little subtle production touch I really, really liked.
Oh, production is great on here. 15 songs, of course, 40 minutes. That's like, I think the sweet spot in terms of how many songs and length of a project.
Exactly.
And then like 65 is a bit of it, but like when she does this pseudo rapping thing, I think that there probably has to be a production change to fit that better. Like I think she has to find. I think she kind of puts that in at certain points where it doesn't fit the production, and you can't even really hear what she's saying or focus on it. It's like rapping is about words. So when you're talking about less words and more vibes, like this is not the place to try and rap. But I think she's not bad at it.
Yeah,
and so I think there is a production style she can figure out that fits with that better. But that's probably the only production note that I would have in terms of something negative.
Yeah. Well, you know what would be interesting? Playboi Carti is a feature on in this music. That would be interesting. I have no idea where, but I'm just sensing a Playboi Carti.
I don't see that. He's not melodic enough. I think that this is like, all right, so there's like entertainer and musician, poet. This what she does is very much in the musician group, and I think that's like above Carti's pay grade. Respectfully,
you're a trash musician.
I didn't say that.
365, I like that a lot because it also has a lot of progressions. A lot of the songs have like a progression in some sort of way, whether they change the synth stabs, like I was talking about the laser guns, the keyboard change I was talking about, the string change that I talked about. Like there's a lot of different progressions. 365, that one is almost, I don't know, I'm trying to think of even the genre. It's like almost like change it to a techno song.
This album is one of the most dynamic albums of the year from a production standpoint. You probably go 8 bars with the same sound.
Facts.
And that's about it.
That's about it.
On every single song. So I think that's like an apt observation.
Yeah.
Because this whole album is just change after beat switch. So
it's made for people like us. Really. Yeah. It's made for like if you're a music nerd or you're just really into music. You're like, oh, it's a progressions. Did you hear that part in the background?
Did you hear those strings? And those lasers?
It's like the distortion, the distortion. I know it sounds like garbage, but that's on purpose. Like you're not supposed to be able to hear what she's saying, you know? But yeah, so it's. But the thing is, we're making fun of ourselves, basically.
But it's true.
But that's what
it's true. And I think the one thing about this album that is like helpful for it is that if you're like a first time listener, like this, you're not gonna get bored of this project.
True.
You might not like it, but you're not gonna get bored.
Yeah.
And I think like that's a very clear distinction of like an album actually boring you, then an album is like, this is just not for me. Because there's these even songs on here that are not for me that I'm like, she killed that. But I know I'm not gonna go listen to that when I get into my car.
Right.
In terms of lyrics,
how do you feel about her singing in conjunction with the lyrics part?
I think she's almost plateaued in a sense in terms of her vocal ability. I haven't seen that much growth from Crash or even before that. I personally think that what you said at the beginning has not been how people have been talking about her, but I think you hit it on the head in terms of more vibes, less lyrics.
Yeah.
And I think that her singing fits into that. I think like she doesn't even try and get into these bags where she's doing runs and no. You don't even see that attempt on here.
Yeah.
And even though, to her contemporaries, I would say she's probably weaker vocally than most of them. Like she's probably in that like Taylor Swift group, and Taylor Swift is probably even a little bit above her. But I don't hold that against her because I don't think that hinders what her music is. And
me neither.
And this album with so much vocal modulation is like, I don't need you to try and sing after you just had distorted auto tune.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? So I think that she's lacking in that, but I don't hold it against her.
Yeah, I think that works too. I think the most that I'm trying to think about like the most that she does when it comes to like her singing is like on Rewind. She's like sometimes, but it's not even like a change in vocalization. It's literally just holding it flat,
just holding a note.
Yeah, just holding a note. And same thing with 360 is like so Julia, right? Like there isn't any modulation, which is fine.
I think those will be songs that live you would see the vocal ability.
Yeah, probably.
I think about someone like A$AP Rocky, who one of the first artists who really, really wowed me live with that some of these songs that you think are like samples, you hear him sing live and you're like, oh, this is you.
Yeah.
And so I think these are some songs where live she'll flex the vocals.
Yeah, she's also making electronic music. This is electronic music. I don't know. I wouldn't even really consider it like really. I guess it's technically pop music, but it's
electronic.
Yeah, it's really
electronic, and it will dip its toe into the other sides of electronic, but it's electronic to its core.
So I think that, you don't need to be super, I don't know, vocally dexterous. You know? You don't need to be Whitney Houston to be making electronic music, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we don't need that. We don't need that.
So I think that it works. She only needs to hold notes, basically.
That's it. If you can hold notes,
yeah. What about her lyrics though? We're talking about the songwriting though.
Rewind is one that actually stood out. The fact that you mentioned that, because it is like so vocally different in terms of her actually trying to sing a little bit. And forget about sing, make what she's saying audible. Like I think like that's a big part of this project is most of the time, not most of the time, but a lot of the time, you can't really hear what she's saying.
Yeah.
And when you do, sometimes you're like, oh, this is about
a certain thing, yeah. This is about being jealous or stuff like that.
And why I liked Rewind is because it is one song that talks about kind of her fame and where she stands in like the pop music game. And even though I'm not a hardcore Charli fan, I think I understand Charli fans where it's like, we're not trying to compete for the top spot in pop. We're just trying to make jams, love the music, and that's it. But because of her success, every time she comes out, is she gonna go number one? Is there a hit?
Yeah.
And I think that this is the song that addresses that the most, because if you heard this album and you did not know about Boom Clap or any of her other hit songs,
you probably wouldn't even think that she made those songs.
Exactly. And I think like this is the juxtaposition of when she does shows, I'm sure that she has to perform a lot of that music because that's the best streaming music. The fans want to hear it. But when she's in the studio until whatever time of day, she's making this. So I like when you're almost like talking about the music, but not talking about the music in a sense. In verse 1, she says, I'd go back in time to when I wasn't insecure, to when I didn't overanalyze my face shape. Nowadays, I only eat at the good restaurants, but honestly, I'm always thinking about my weight. I used to never feel embarrassed when I call up the paparazzi. Everyone else does it constantly. Like that section right there, I think is just so great because this is such an honest depiction of what she's thinking and going through without making it super deep. Like I think the line between being honest and being deep is something people mess up so much.
Yeah.
And they try and go deep first and it ends up being a whole lot of nothing. And so this being very straightforward, I like, but two things in here. Overanalyze my face shape. That is like hardcore girl on girl hate. Like
the shape of one's face?
For sure. Like the amount of times I've heard women talk about their face shape and being scared about their jawline or lack thereof or whatever that is. Like I'm thinking of a man having these same lyrics saying overanalyze my face shape.
I don't I don't even know which artist would do that. And I can't even think of it.
That's why I like that line there. And a big part of it is this male privilege of having beards now.
Yeah.
Like when I went mustache and had no beard at a time last year, people were like, you actually have a really good jawline. And I was like, you thought I was beard fishing this whole time? And it's like, that's a thing where it's like, what male singer is gonna talk about insecurities to this level and then say, overanalyze my face shape?
Yeah.
That's a whole different level.
Has a man ever sung about their hairline?
I don't think so. And it's like, that's the part where it's like, we don't need her to go deep into it and talk about what about your face shape, how often you look in the mirror, your algorithm is like. Just saying around as my face shape, there's a whole group of people who can just hear that and say, I get you, girl. Yeah. I understand. And then after that, she goes, nowadays, I only eat at the good restaurants, but honestly, I'm always thinking about my weight. Now, to be fair, maybe I'm more sensitive to this topic because I literally yesterday finished Britney Spears' book, Woman in Me. Oh, okay. And so this is topical in my mind, at least. But I think the way that she puts it of, I'm always thinking about my weight is, I think, more honest and more relatable than kind of making a whole song about your weight and making it empowering. Like just the idea of, I eat at the good restaurants, but I still always think about my weight. That feels very common to me. And there's women of all sizes who are like, I just think about it. Yeah. I'm not saying I'm not eating good. I'm not saying I'm unhealthy. I'm not saying I'm starving myself. But it definitely is on my mind. And I think that's part of, we talked about the fame and her success, like that's a big part of it. This album sounds way more like 100 Gags than it sounds like Taylor Swift. And when you think about the artists who sound like this, most of them are not thinking about.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck what they look like. They're trying to make sure that it looks as cool, whatever they're doing or what they look like is as cool as possible.
And I was thinking about, because we're going to get to it in a bit, of like all her covers not having her on the cover. And this is the sound that she's more, I guess, more comfortable and more home to her. It's like, she's an anomaly in this sense. Anyone else's album that sounds like this, even someone like Yeet, who's not even in this genre, so to speak, their appearance is not a part of them in a public way as much. Yeah. So to have that juxtaposition of like, she's a pop star still. Her appearance matters, her weight matters, who she's with matters, paparazzi is on her, to then your music is sounding like this. We don't see that very often.
Yeah, I feel like she's always in constant battle with her celebrity versus her musicianship. Yeah. Like she always, again, because I mentioned earlier, it's like that chart topping ability exists for her. She can do that. Yes. Right? She can be a chart topper, but I think, and from what she even says on this album, is that she wants to make music like this. Hyper pop, electronic. Yep. Just pop just happens to be part of the song construction. But it's really more electronic, EDM, techno.
Yeah, pop is just more the song structure. Yeah. And even in that, I would say these are not all like the level of progression on these songs.
Yeah, it's not, those are not pop songs.
So it's like, again, she's put in that group because of what she's accomplished and what she's done. Yeah. But she doesn't really live there.
Yeah. So like a good example of this was like even her talking about it is on Von Dutch, where this is in the hook. This is in the chorus, bro. She's like, I'm just living that life. Von Dutch, cult classic, but I still pop, right? I get money, you get mad because the bank's shut. Yeah, I know your little secret. Put your hands up. It's so obvious. I'm your number one. Life, Von Dutch, cult classic in your eardrums. Why you lying? You won't fuck unless he famous. Do that little dance. Without it, you'd be nameless. It's so obvious. I'm your number one. So this is like a lot of things at the same time. Even though there's repetition in here, where she loves repetition. Yes, oh my God. Yes. If you could find a song that doesn't have her repeating a line 5 times in it on this album.
It's not out.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. But she's like, she recognized Von Dutch. She's a cult classic. Brat and the previous couple of albums by Charli XCX are cult classics. They're not really big charting albums. And then there's the idea of... I know your little secret, put your hands up, where she's talking about like, do that little dance. Without it, you'd be nameless. I'm so obvious. I'm your number one. So she's even like criticizing people that like pop stars who are trying to be number ones, trying to get number ones, and saying like, yo, if you didn't do that shit, you'd be nameless. It's so obvious I'm your number one because you want to actually be doing the shit like me, be like me, where I can't. The thing is for her is like, I can make a hit. I did that. Now I'm just doing the weird shit because I can. And you wish you were like me, but you're trapped doing all the number one pop shit. Yeah. Okay? I'm doing me. So I think that her even just having that, this is in the chorus, right? This is the part she wants everybody to know.
And the chorus of the single.
Yeah, and the chorus of the single. So she's really trying to like shove it in like other pop stars' face. I feel like she's not talking to the audience. She's talking to literally other artists. And the song overall is about jealousy, right? So she's really on her FU type of shit. A lot of braggadocious lyrics on this.
As she should. I think this album really solidified to me how unique what she is. Like, what she is, how unique that is in this game. Like, if you think of all the pop stars we've reviewed their albums, they're not doing music like her. And it's like we almost are stretching to find a way in which their music is unique. And you think about someone like Ariana Grande compared to Charli XCX. Ariana Grande makes good music, but the music she's making is not,
anywhere near what Charli X when it comes to like artistry. Or not artistry, she still has it. She's a better singer.
Yes.
1000%.
Yes.
But like weird is like a signature of somebody who's like, I'm an artist. You know what I mean? You're trying to make it idiosyncratic.
And I think even having that as a label of you of being like, I'm an artist, is something that for most pop artists, only their fans think that.
Yeah.
Like I think, if you're a fan of Ed Sheeran and we say he's just a pop star, you're gonna come for our necks and say he's an artist.
He's an artist.
Right? But I think for the most part, if you're not a fan of Ed Sheeran, you're like, he's just a pop artist. Which is the same for the Taylors and the Arianas. Charli is one of those people who doesn't have that. You don't have to be a fan. If you know of what she does and you heard her music, you're like, okay, she's an artist and a pop star. And so her talking this shit, she's right.
Yeah, she is right.
She's right.
And even songs where in 360, she's like, I'm so Julia, bro.
Yes.
Like, I'm Julia Fox, bro. And everybody else is trying to do other shit. So I think that that's good. I love her repetition, like I mentioned before. Find me a song where she doesn't say the same line 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row.
No,
like
not exist.
It doesn't exist. I think even on Everything Is So Romantic, where she's like falling in love again and again, falling in love again and again, and you hear the distortion starting to happen. You see her starting to add like ad libs to a couple of the songs or a couple of those lines. So even when it's repetitive, she's still adding, there's still a little, bells and whistles on the repetition in multiple different ways. That's why I kept mentioning Playboi Carti, because I'm like, that reminds me of like what Playboi Carti used to do on like Die Lit.
Yeah.
Right? Where there's a crazy amount of repetition, but there's just like these little bells, like little ad libs, little, strip out the parts of the beat type of stuff like that. That happens here as well. So I think that is part of the reason. Also, that's part of the reason why I think people like this so much. Because it's like Daft Punk, Playboi Carti, and Charli XCX have that like thing with repetition, doing repetitive all the time, but just a little extra bit here, a little extra bit there.
Yes.
Strip this part, add a little bit of this part, and that repetition gets cemented in your head, but it never gets old. Right? It's always like spritzed up by different things.
They find a way to make it refreshing, which I think is a unique skill from all 3 of those people. And listen, all legends.
Facts.
All legends. What do you think?
Playboi Carti, legend.
For sure, he's been a legend. Been a legend. What do you think about what this means for her career?
I think for her, it's gonna be a freeing album. I think Crash was a little bit closer to the pop realm. Obviously, there were even like New Jack Swing songs on that, but this is really like, fuck it, I'm out. Like she's like, no cover, basically. On a Kanye, no cover. I'm leaving. This pop shit, it's cool, but I'm doing electronic, techno, EDM, house, all this other shit. Even Grime. Remember we were talking about Grime.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm leaving, right? And I do think from the cultural impact it's having, it's a Brat summer, allegedly.
It definitely is a Brat summer.
Right? So for her to have that cultural impact and be such a dalliance from any of the other work that she did where it was like pop related, is kind of like, I'm out and everybody's following me. Right? I'm a call classic, Van Dutch, right?
This is big for her. I think that, like, other than the fact that she didn't go #1, this is probably her most popular album in her career. And for her to have most popular album in her career 10 years after multiple #1 songs and basically a whole different sound than all of those, very, very, very commendable. So to me, this is like, I don't want to say her make or break project, but this is like the start of this part of her career where she's basically not pop music anymore, but still a pop star and still wildly successful.
Yeah, she's going to like a Bjork almost.
Yeah,
type of range.
And it's like, this is an artist that doesn't really exist anymore in pop. Like this is very much a 90s type of artist in a sense. So for me, this is great for her career, especially because I think that she's doubling down on her fans. I think that, excuse me, a lot of pop artists don't always do that, and they keep their net wide, still try and catch everyone. I think there's a great chance that someone who calls themselves a Charli XCX fan is not as hip to this because it's not the sound that they thought they were getting or wanted. And for her to just almost like turn her back on those people, like if you're a boom clap person, and you're like, oh my god, new Charli XCX, like I don't know why you would still be. That's a different story. But let's say you're that kind of person, and you're like, new Charli XCX, let me go listen. Like you're gonna be very surprised. So I think this is a plus for her career as a whole.
This is going next. This like songs like back to back are going next to "Slut Me Out" too by NLE Choppa.
Wow.
Which it is though, because those two songs, those two vibes go together.
No, you're not wrong. I just the words leaving your mouth was obviously a little alarming, but you're not wrong.
Here's also an interesting thing. She dropped this in June. It's Pride.
Yes.
This is a big time Pride album.
Yes. Like, for sure.
This is like, I think that electronic music throughout its history has been associated with Pride in multiple ways, like so many different ways. So I think that her releasing this now was also, I don't know if she did on purpose.
It definitely had to be.
But it is great, just like strategy, because it's going to be playing on club.
And let's talk about it being no skips. That like, it is a no skips for that. Like, to me, I was like, this is an album you could play at some pre's and just run.
Yeah, run it, yep.
Like, 100%. There's some pre's where you play this album and they're going to look at you a little crazy. Of course, different stories, different folks. But there's certain pre's where you can run this whole project all the way through. So I think you hit it on the head with that one.
First of all, back to back, I could literally just hear her saying back to back to back. And, like, the strobe lights are going off in the background. Oh, my God.
Going crazy.
Yeah, so I'm like, this song or this album is a club album. Not in a 50 Cent club. We're talking about a rave type of club.
Yes.
Right? People are wearing neon stickers and fucking they got furry boots on type of club.
I'm gonna do some market research and ask people about this, but I can guess this is already we're on June 20th. Like,
this shit is playing in the club 1,000%.
Clubs, pre's, parties, like this is definitely.
We need to go. We should attend the club, see first.
Yeah,
it's still Pride, bro. We need to go.
There's time left. The cover.
Yeah,
I think this is really cool that she's done this for basically all of her projects.
Oh, you like that?
Yeah, I think having that cohesiveness on all the projects is pretty cool to me. And I think like it's a very minimalist look that like fits the artistic ideal of like, okay, I'm a creative.
Yeah.
So I think that it is really cool. And I think too, it's like eventually I think she's gonna run out of colors or color combinations. I do think there's gonna be some overlap there. But I really like this kind of keeping in the same mode of the cover, because eventually when she does switch it up, it will be a big deal.
Yeah.
Whether the cover is good or not. But whenever the cover is actually something that's not just words, it will be a big deal. So I like this.
Yeah, I like the cover too. I do think that the fact that the word Brat is blurry also like adds an effect to it. Like I think that there's something about it not being properly printed onto the graphic that adds a
little sprinkle.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it just makes it just like that much more dynamic. The green is a very, it's like a neon green almost, like kind of like a vomit green. But I do think that it's iconic. It definitely is. It's definitely iconic, because can't really think of another album that looks like this. I've seen we've seen other album covers that it's just like a solid color. Like Vince Staples had like just the black, where you can like very, very, very barely see the title on it. There's been albums where it didn't have a cover, like for like Yeezus, where it was literally there was no cover. The cover was the CD. So there's a lot of things like that, but hers is like green with like, I don't even know what font is that. Is that Helvetica or?
Yeah, someone tell us what font this is.
It's like Arial or something like that. And again, it's blurred, like purposefully blurred. I think it's dope. I think that she did something here for real with the cover.
I think also this is, to me, she's like a pop artist who's anti-pop.
Yeah.
Because this is the cover that the label definitely did not.
Yeah,
want
they're
you
like,
to
no,
have.
no, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Like,
And this is every album has been this type of cover.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where she feels like, listen, I'm still pop in, but not pop. This cover is a great example of that, because could you see the other female pop stars having a cover like this? Like, there's almost no way.
No.
Like, there's no way in the world. Like, they got to be on the cover. It has to be some kind of artsy shit, some kind of like picture. Like, she's taking the whole cover budget out of the budget for them.
Yeah.
Like, when they say, okay,
that's so true.
Like,
just saving people a ton of money.
it's like well, we get $100,000 for the budget of your cover. It's like, no, I'm good. Just give me that.
Yeah, just put the text on the green and let's get out of here.
So it's like every sense of the word, she's really proving it. And maybe we gotta do a ranking of this of all genres.
Mm-hmm.
But the stars who are not pop, who I'm a star, but I'm not pop.
Yeah.
She's ranking high in that. So I want to give her kudos. I guess we said this isn't no skips.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. There are some songs that I would skip personally, but this is definitely a no skips where it's like, this can play. Like, again, this is, I'm totally thinking this is at the pre.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Shot O'Clock is happening at least 6 times while this album is playing. So this fits as a no skips for me. Where are you in terms of a score?
Okay. So for me, Charli XCX's Brat, iconic. This is a 9 out of 10. This is probably one of the best albums that came out this year.
Wow.
And this is part of the reason why it was one of my most anticipated, because I was in.
No, she delivered.
She delivered. I did not expect it to be as engrossing as it was. The amount of progression, the vocal changes and stuff like that, where it's like super electronic, super auto-tune. And I love it. I think my only drawback is I might say something stupid, too many words. Just too many words.
Too much words. Okay.
Too many words. Not enough repetition. Not enough. It's not as ecstatic. Like, I feel like every song you're like dropping into a pool and you're trying to, you're dancing and stuff like that. It's just like it's too little evocation of like just trying to dance and do stuff. Too many words trying to like sing me to death.
You don't want to read. You want to vibe.
Exactly. Right? That's why the letters are blurry on the cover and not in fine print. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I think that other than that song, everything else I love. I love progressions, I love the production. A.G. Cook did their big one right. Okay? Did their big one. And I think that even in the songs that it's repetitive, like they still have messages and shit in them. So I'm not saying that like you're just trying to make it mindless. I just think that the less words you use, the better. You can still convey messages that way. So for me, it's a 9 out of 10. One of the best albums of the year. Adriel, what about you?
I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't see that 9 out of 10 coming.
Wow.
I really should have. I feel like I've known you long enough. But that 9 out of 10 definitely surprised me. I have it at a 7.5.
Okay.
I think that this album is one of my favorites of the year. I think this from like a straight listening experience. I think that definitely one consistent theme and sound. And I think it definitely takes you places musically that like you're not expecting to go.
Yeah.
Even though it's already doing that, like you think, okay, I would expect the unexpected in a sense. No, that like auto-tune ballad is an example of one. The industrial sounds in Von Dutch that basically almost never come back.
Yeah, that's true.
So I like this album a lot. Do I want to give this more than a 7.5?
It's up to you. I'm in the 9 zone. I'm unabashed with my scores.
Okay, you know what? I'll give you the floor. Can you convince me of why this is an 8 and not a 7.5?
So no skips.
Okay.
Right? We already said the cover is iconic.
Okay.
It has the musical progressions that you really liked.
Yeah.
Right? The lyrics, right? She's got these lyrics that are almost, she's talking about, it's like they're meta. They're talking about not even just her, but her in relation to everybody else.
Yeah.
Right? No flubs lyrically.
Yes.
Like actually none.
Yes.
And you just said, you're like, this is one of my favorite, like, just like listens. You just like love listening to it. So I'm like 7.5 and I love listening to it. What's happening?
You know what? This one's for Brittany. I'm going to move it to an 8.
Wow. Shout out to Brittany.
Yeah. I'd also feel like this is one of those albums that really shows like the kind of life you're living.
True. That's so true.
Because when I listen to this album, like, when am I wearing an outfit that goes with this album? Like,
Yeah.
like how often am I like, wearing something that matches the vibe of this project. You know what I mean? Like, I listened to this album while I was getting my hair braided, and I said, like, this is not the vibe of getting my hair braided. So
I don't know. I don't think you have the clothes in your wardrobe to not cunty enough. Not cunty enough. How much cunt outfits do you have?
You're right about that. I don't have any crop tops. You're right about that.
How many mesh tops do you have? You know, how many rings do you have? You know,
oh my god,
different vibe.
No, you're right about that. But I do think, like, despite that, this project is really good. I think this is one of those that's, I think, had a good chance of making our top 10 list.
Yeah.
Starting off second half of the year off, right? So listen, let us know what you think in the comments. All the Charli XCX fans. Are we too low on this somehow? Yeah. Is it even better than we're saying? Of course, find us on Instagram at Album Mode Pod, on Twitter at Album Mode Pod, on TikTok at Album Mode Pod. Give us a rating and a review on all your podcast platforms. 5 stars, not a single star less. And of course, subscribe on YouTube. You're already here on YouTube. Like this video, share it with your people. Leave us a comment. I want to know who was more right. How green is Démar's shirt? Is it green enough for him to claim green? And let us know what you guys think. And until next time, know yourself, know your worth.
Later days.